is it really mathematically possible to have predicted this? Like, let's say if you were doing your work in 1970, could you have, run the numbers and said, okay, by 2020 we're going to have Trump?
I did it in 2010.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
In fact, I published it in Nature.
Okay.
And I was running numbers by that point. Of course, there are limits to prediction. So, in fact, in 2010, I published this prediction that said it was forecast that said that by 2020s, United States will be in serious trouble in terms of social turbulence, political conflict, and perhaps even wars. So, where did this forecast come from? Well, I started as a biologist, but then in around 1997 or so, I switched to doing history. We call it Cliodynamics. Clio is the muse of history, and dynamics is the science of change. All right. And so initially, I and my colleagues, we studied past societies. And we found that ever since state-level societies, right, appeared about 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, and then spread everywhere, they exhibit a very distinct pattern. It's a boom-bust dynamics, not perfect mathematical cycles, not perfectly periodic cycles, but boom and bust dynamics with characteristic periods of about 200 years, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. It also depends on the type of society, the length, the average period.
Do you think part of it is just related to human lifespan, like the number of generations?
Yeah. But let me actually, I'll get to that. It does obviously generational change is the basic pace setter for this type of long-term dynamics. But what I want to do is I want to get to answering your question about why does elite overproduction shows up at some periods and not others. All right. So what we see is that there is typically maybe a century-long period of internal peace and order and functional governance, and then another century of all kinds of civil wars, political conflicts and things like that. So what happens is that once a society travels through the integrative period, the elites they become very comfortable with their position, and in fact, they become selfish. All right, and so they start rejiggering societies for their own benefit rather than for the benefit of the whole society. So, in the past, for example, during the Middle Ages, right, the nobility would start oppressing peasants. But what happened in the United States in around 1970 is that the governing elites have started to turn off the institutions that were installed during the New Deal and which underlied the unprecedented run of prosperity that we have seen up until roughly 1970s. All right, so how they did it? Well, they limited the ability of workers to organize. They stopped increasing minimum wage. They shipped lots of industries overseas, and there was massive immigration also. So all those factors, they resulted in what I call the wealth pump. All right, so I'm sure you've seen this graph where you look at the productivity of American workers and it keeps going up. And right around late 1970s, the compensation, which was going precisely with the productivity, stops. It stagnates, even declines. Right. So what happened to all that extra wealth that workers were producing but not getting? All right. It was going not to the state, it was going to the economic elites, actually to the elites in general. And this was the wealth pump, which took from the common people, the most of the population, and gave it to the elites. All right. So this wealth pump had three consequences, which were hugely destabilizing. The first one, it resulted in a huge overproduction of wealth holders. Now, we've been talking mostly about holders of degrees, right? But in United States and many other Western democracies, the elites are primarily composed from the economic elites and credentialed elites. So what happened was since 1980 was that the number of uber wealthy has exploded. All right, you have 10 times as many decamillionaires and 20 times as many billionaires as compared to 1980.
Adjusted for inflation?
Adjusted for inflation,
Okay.
exactly. So, and if you want in per capita terms, we have 7 times as many decamillionaires because population has also grown. Now, not all of those people have political aspirations, but some do. And so what we now have, we have 10 times or maybe even 20 times as many aspirants for political positions that there were 40, 50 years ago. So this is the game of musical chair I was talking about. All right, the number of positions is fixed: 1 president, 100 senators, and so on and so forth. But you have 10 times as many or more aspirants for them. So that is how elite overproduction actually worked in this particular example.
And are you familiar with there's a website called WTF 1971?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, it's basically listing all there is like 20 different things, trend lines you can look at that all broke between 1968 and 1972, something like that. Like energy consumption, rate of energy consumption per capita increase, productivity figures, like everything seems to have gone wrong at some point there.
The wealth pump is a very basic mechanism. It actually works over and over again, and it affects the whole society. Its effects percolate through all the different parts of society, which is why 1970s is often people see all kinds of things happening, all kinds of trends changing direction in the 1970s.
What I'm